Hey Ottawa, this is Annalee Rice with LePage Performance with your Monday market snapshot for May 15th, 2023. Can you believe we're halfway through May already? First, we'll look citywide. The number of active listings is up by 43 this week. That seems like a little bit of a jump, but if we look back both 3 weeks ago and 7 weeks ago, that's about the same as we had then. So it's up a little, but it's not up significantly for the whole spring. Sales were up this week as well. It's up 34 sales. That's the highest we've seen all uh, year so far. It's 347 sales across the city. Here we see it visually. We've got the green wedge is getting a little bit higher, but if you see that there was two other earlier peaks this spring about the same height. The conditionally sold, that's the orange, that's staying about the same. And what we're seeing what's bringing our total up is the number of sold properties. That number climbed fairly significantly this week. So for the second week in a row, we have a jump in the number of new listings. This quite a significant jump this week. We had 531 properties that were listed for sale, and of those 531, 83% or 442 were new to the market. So that's a big jump. And then 17% or 89% of the 89 properties were relisted properties. Those ratios are similar to past, it's just the numbers are getting larger. Sales, as I mentioned on the last slide, sales were up this week as well, but not by as much, and that's how we see the increase in the number of active listings this week. Okay, so this is the first time we've seen a bit of a fair change in this chart since I've been tracking it since the beginning of the year. This week we saw that over a third of the properties were now selling without any conditions. That's up from we were around 23 to 27% throughout the rest of the year so far, and this week it was up to 34% that were sold without any conditions. Of the properties that sold this week, 29% were on the market for 7 or fewer days, and 70% of the homes sold within 30 days. So as we're having more sales, we're starting to see them selling more are selling quicker, and also more homes, especially the ones in the first week, are selling without any conditions. Okay, now let's zoom into the different areas of the city so we can see a little bit more detail. First off, we got the central urban region. We're seeing an increase in the number of active listings for detached, but a drop in the number of townhomes and condominiums for sale. Sales were up across all property types, but most notably, you see 19 more condos sold this week. That's a big jump over last week. In Canada and Stittsville, we're seeing the opposite of what we saw inside the Greenbelt. We're actually seeing fewer detached homes listed for sale and an increase for towns and condos, just a little bit of an increase. Sales were pretty flat for detached and condos, but up a little bit for townhomes, which is again making it really, really tight market for townhomes in Canada and Stittsville. In Barhaven and Riverside South, we're seeing pretty much the same trends as what we saw in Canada and Stittsville. We've got a drop in the number of detached homes for sale, and that's the second week in a row that it's been a drop by 10. And then an slight increase for townhomes and condos for sale, and the increase in sales for detached homes and a slight decrease for towns and condos. And in Orleans, we have an increase in the number of detached and towns that are listed, a slight drop for condominiums. And the sales this week across Orleans were down in all of the property types. Okay, so these are the full stats for the residential detached properties. And on all of these charts, I'm going to point out that you can start seeing how you can visually see how many are conditionally selling and how many are selling. When we had a lot fewer properties selling in any week, it was almost like you could see the conditionals and that's how many sold you would have the next week. But now that we're seeing only 2/3 of the properties selling with conditions, you can start looking to see which types of properties are selling with conditions. So for detached homes, across the city, there was 105 that are conditionally sold and 152 that sold. We'll just have to look at sort of the ratios of that as we move along. And here we have the townhomes. Same thing. This is actually a little bit tighter. So if you have 44 conditionally sold and 74 that sold, so we're getting almost to the point where half of the properties that are the townhomes are selling without that conditional period, or they're having very quick conditional periods. That's possible too. Um, Another thing I noticed about these townhomes this week was that the average sale price across all the different areas across the city, so citywide, central urban, and all three of the suburbs, they were all very close in price, which is not always the case. Typically, Canada and Stittsville and Barrhaven tend to have a little bit higher prices. Central urban is very variable depending on which places are selling, and Orleans tends to be the cheapest. But this week, they were all very close. And we have the condominiums here, and we see a lot more in the way of conditionally sold properties. I think more condos are selling still with conditions. So if you're in the market for detached or townhomes, that's the types of homes that are starting to see fewer homes selling with conditions. I might break that out next week and see if I can give a little bit more clarity on that. Okay, so I hope you found this update interesting. I know it was a bit shorter than usual. I've been super busy with some sales and some purchases and rental. So if you have any questions or if you have data or stats that you want me to pull for future updates, please drop me a line, send me a text, get in touch, and let me know. Leave a comment on this video on YouTube, and I will see if I can pull those stats and give more clarity on what's happening in the Ottawa real estate market. I hope you have a fantastic week.